I'm Madeline, 30 years old. The night my mother raised her glass to celebrate my younger sister's birthday, then slid a restaurant bill for $2,400 across the table. To me was the moment I finally understood where I stood in this family. If you were in my place at 30, would you have paid the bill or would you have spoken up? I'm genuinely curious how others would handle it. April 2024. Uptown Minneapolis was still shaking off the last of winter, but inside the private dining room of La Stella, the Italian place Savannah had chosen for her birthday, the air was thick with laughter and the scent of roasted garlic. The staff moved quietly, refilling glasses with Prosecco and keeping a steady flow of small plates coming. The tables sparkled with silverware crystal and Savannah's gifts piled at one end. Even before anyone spoke, I knew who the star was tonight. Savannah was turning 28. She wore a red silk dress, the kind of thing I could never pull off. Donna, our mother, looked radiant and proud, talking loudly with Savannah's friends and the few aunts and uncles who'd flown in. My dad Rick was half listening, half scrolling through his phone. Tyler, my boyfriend, sat next to me, quietly supportive, offering me a small squeeze of the hand now and then. It's funny how you hope things will be different as an adult, even when the pattern's been set since you were a kid. I'd bought Savannah a necklace, sterling, simple, a little over my budget, but she'd barely looked at it, distracted by a designer bag from my parents. Donna cooed over it, saying how Savannah deserved the best. Nobody asked what I was up to at the hospital or if I was seeing anyone. Tyler noticed, though. He's got this habit of catching my eye at the right moment, like he knows what I'm thinking before I do. Dinner went by in a blur. Savannah opened presents, people toasted her, and the waiter made a show of bringing out a 3-tiered cake. Donna stood up, her glass raised high. To Savannah, the daughter I'm truly proud of. You light up every room, darling. The words hung in the air. I felt Tyler's hand tighten on mine, and I tried to keep my face neutral, hoping no one would see the flush rising up my neck. The laughter died down as the waiter returned, this time with a small leather folder. He paused, checking the names, and placed it right in front of me. Donna leaned over, voice soft but clear. Go on, Madeline, pay it. The room was silent for a moment. I looked around at Savannah, who didn't seem to notice. At Rick, who quickly looked away. At Tyler, who looked as stunned as I felt. One of my aunts caught my eye and gave the smallest shake of her head but said nothing. I opened the folder. The total $2,400 was written out in neat blue ink, plus tax and a suggested gratuity. My name was on the reservation, but that wasn't why the bill came to me. It was because in this family I was the responsible one. The one expected to step up, cover the gaps, make things easy for everyone else. I felt my stomach twist. I'd saved for months to afford my own rent, my own life. I'd worked nights, taken extra shifts, skipped vacations. I could technically cover this bill, but why should I? Still, my hands moved on their own. I fished out my card, slid it inside, and handed it back to the waiter. Donna smiled, the kind of smile that says, "See, I knew you'd do the right thing." Tyler whispered, "You don't have to do this," but it was too late. The card was gone, and so was the last bit of hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd ever be more than the one who pays. After the bill, the mood shifted. People went back to their conversations, the music got louder, and Savannah led everyone in a round of shots. I sat quietly, folding the receipt into my purse. The humiliation burned, but it was also clarifying. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just done. That night, as Tyler and I left the restaurant, he asked me softly if I was okay. I lied and said yes. The truth was, the bill wasn't just about money. It was about my place in this family, a place I never chose, but one I was done accepting. As we drove home through the quiet Minneapolis streets, I wondered how it had all started. At what point had I become the one expected to pick up the tab, literally and figuratively? That night was an ending, but it was also the start of something I didn't yet have words for. 2010. Suburban Minneapolis felt small in those days, block after block of tidy lawns, swing sets, and neighbors who remembered your name. Our house sat near the corner of a quiet street, white siding and a wide porch Donna kept swept clean. Inside, though, everything seemed to revolve around Savannah. I was 16 that spring, staring down the barrel of my junior year at Washburn High. Savannah, 2 years younger, had just made the regional ballet company. There were photos everywhere, her in pink tights, her arms arched gracefully above her head, medals glinting from dance recitals. The fridge was covered with her competition ribbons and cast lists. Sometimes I'd tack up a science quiz or a letter from my English teacher, but they'd get quietly replaced within a week. The first time I asked Donna about joining a summer science program, one I'd read about on a guidance counselor's board, she barely glanced up from her grocery list. "That's expensive, Maddie. Besides, Savannah needs new point shoes and another set of lessons this summer. You know how much ballet costs." She smiled at Savannah, who was busy rehearsing a spin in the kitchen, knocking a cereal bowl off the counter. I was told to clean it up. Most afternoons, Savannah's practice music drifted through the house, Tchaikovsky Delibes or whatever new mix her teacher had given her. Donna would clap from the living room, Rick nodding along with a blank look, lost in paperwork from his job at the car dealership. Savannah was everywhere, her presence soaking into every wall. On weekends, Donna drove Savannah to studios across the Twin Cities for classes that cost $2,000 a session. For recitals, they bought dresses for $600, sometimes more. I wore the same dress for 3 school dances, sewing new ribbons onto the waist to make it look fresh. When I asked if we could buy something new, Donna just shrugged. "That's a want, honey, not a need." Savannah's bedroom was a pink palace, walls lined with shelves of dance trophies and boxes of ballet shoes, some never worn. My room was smaller, mostly books and hand-me-down clothes, a poster of the solar system taped above my bed. Rick was rarely home, and when he was tired, more likely to hand me his empty coffee mug than ask how I was doing. "Different kids, different needs," he'd say if I brought up the imbalance. Family gatherings weren't much better. Savannah would perform a dance, everyone would clap and hand her gift cards. I'd be asked about my grades, quick, polite, and forgettable. If I showed off a report card, Donna might smile and say, "Well, of course. You've always been the responsible one." Sometimes I wanted to scream. There were moments I wondered if it was me, if maybe I was boring, too quiet, too practical. I didn't cry, didn't throw fits, never got detention. I started picking up the slack around the house, vacuuming, helping Donna meal prep, keeping the bills sorted. The unspoken deal became clear: the more Savannah performed, the more I was expected to handle the invisible work. One afternoon, I caught a glimpse of Savannah practicing in the living room mirror, her form perfect, her face calm. Donna watched, eyes misty, murmuring, "That's my star." I lingered at the doorway, unseen, holding a basket of laundry. I'd tell myself it didn't matter, that being dependable was its own kind of gift. But the truth was, I was already learning to disappear. On my 16th birthday, Donna gave me a used backpack for school. "It's practical," she chirped, "and it'll last you years." Savannah got a new dance bag, custom embroidered with her initials. I thanked Donna and carried my old books out to the bus stop, shoulders already slumped with a weight that wasn't just homework. For as long as I can remember, it's always been this way. As I headed off to another quiet weekend, Savannah heading to rehearsal, I had no idea just how deep those patterns would dig as we grew older. 2012. Minneapolis looked enormous to me as a freshman. Hundreds of thousands of people, trams snaking through Snow City blocks, bustling with life. When I moved into my dorm at the University of Minnesota, it was a rite of passage, but also a leap into the unknown. My roommate Lexi had family visiting every weekend, dropping off home-cooked meals and shopping bags. I unpacked my single duffel and a battered box of textbooks, most of them borrowed. Donna had sent me off with a curt hug and a gift card, just enough for a couple of weeks' groceries. "You're independent, honey." "You always have been," she'd said, eyes already flicking to Savannah's ballet rehearsal schedule. Savannah was 16, and her life at home was full of parties, practice, and new outfits. Her Instagram, full of dance shots and shopping sprees, got more likes than I'd ever see on any of my posts. Every call home ended the same way: Donna telling me about Savannah's latest achievement or asking if I could spot her for gas money when she visited. "Just a little help, Maddie. She's younger, she'll pay you back." By sophomore year, Savannah was headed for college, 2 communications major, moving into a sparkling new campus apartment, all on my parents' dime. Donna paid her rent, sent $1,000 a month for spending money, even helped buy her a car when she complained about the buses. Meanwhile, I worked nights at a local care facility, running errands for patients, changing linens, scrubbing bathrooms. My shifts went late, midnight, sometimes later, and I'd catch up on homework in the break room. I survived on ramen noodles and the occasional free pizza at study group. The laptop I used was a hand-me-down from a cousin duct-taped at the hinge. At Christmas, Savannah unwrapped a new tablet headphones clothes. I got socks and a sweater, both marked down from last year's clearance rack. Donna apologized. "Money's tight, honey. But you're so good at making things work." She smiled like that was a compliment. Every spring I'd send emails with my grades, dean's list, scholarships, the rare award. Donna would reply with a single line. "Proud of you. Savannah needs help with her essay. Can you proofread?" If I ignored the request, she'd text, then call, then bring it up at the next holiday. By junior year, I'd saved enough to move off campus, sharing a drafty apartment in northeast Minneapolis with 3 other girls. Rent was $1,500 a month. My share wasn't cheap, but I made it work by picking up more shifts. I learned to stretch groceries, hunt thrift stores for cookware, mend my own clothes. Savannah dropped in once, horrified by our cramped kitchen. "Mom would never let me live like this," she said, and I laughed, though it wasn't funny. Family dinners became rare, but when they happened, the pattern only grew clearer. Donna would pull me aside, voice sweet but insistent. "Your sister's rent is late, sweetheart. Can you help her out just this once, or Savannah's car broke down? It'd mean so much if you could cover the repairs." Rick, as always, said little. I wanted to say no, but guilt gnawed at me. I tried to draw a line, setting limits on what I could give, but every no felt like a betrayal. The script was always the same: Donna reminding me how much Savannah needed help, how family takes care of family, how lucky I was to be so responsible. Once, after refusing to lend Savannah money for a spring break trip, Donna emailed me a list of everything she claimed they'd done for me over the years. None of it felt true, but I didn't stop hoping. I told myself that if I just finished college, if I graduated, got a job, stood on my own, maybe things would shift. Maybe Donna would finally see me not just as the helper, but as a daughter worth celebrating. The night I graduated, I waited for my family in a sea of caps and gowns, clutching my diploma. Savannah sent a selfie from a party, hair curled, champagne in hand. Donna and Rick arrived late, smiling for photos, but eager to leave for Savannah's dinner reservations across town. I took a cab back to my apartment, diploma on my lap, Tyler's voice on the phone telling me he was proud. Part of me still hoped that graduation would finally change everything. Maybe, just maybe, they'd see me. But as I unpacked the last of my boxes in my new tiny apartment, I already knew the pattern was deeper than any milestone. 2016. My first apartment wasn't much of 500 square foot walk-up in northeast Minneapolis with peeling paint and creaky floors that echoed every footstep. But it was mine. Every paycheck I'd saved, every night I'd spent calculating expenses on scrap paper had led to this moment: a set of keys, a blank slate. I furnished it slowly, hunting thrift stores for mismatched chairs, picking up a battered couch from a neighbor who was moving to Seattle. The bedroom window faced east, catching the sunrise over the city skyline. I kept a few plants on the sill rescued from the clearance shelf at the grocery store, and a thrifted lamp on my tiny kitchen table. It was barely enough room for one person, but for the first time in my life, every inch belonged to me. Nursing was harder than I expected. My first days at the hospital were a blur of long shifts, frantic note-taking, and exhaustion so deep I sometimes woke in the middle of the night convinced I'd forgotten to check a patient's IV. The break room became my sanctuary: metal lockers, lukewarm coffee, and the quiet camaraderie of fellow nurses. On rough days, patients would leave thank you notes scrawled on sticky pads or torn corners of their discharge instructions. I taped them to my fridge like trophies. Tyler came into my life during those first months on my own. He was new to Minneapolis too, working as a physical therapist at a clinic nearby. We met at a coffee shop on Hennepin, both of us juggling shifts and student loans. Tyler saw me in a way my family never had. He asked about my work, laughed at my tired jokes, and never once compared me to Savannah. On weekends, he'd come by with takeout and a movie, or help me rearrange my apartment when a neighbor left a better couch by the dumpster. My relationship with my family changed, but not as much as I'd hoped. Savannah was in and out of college, hopping from major to major, picking up internships she lost interest in after a month. Donna called often, sometimes just to chat, more often to ask for help. "Savannah's rent is due, honey. Could you cover it just this once?" Or, "Your sister's car broke down again, maybe you could lend her some money." She promises to pay you back. I wanted to say no, and sometimes I did. The first time my voice shook so badly I had to hang up before Donna could argue. She texted that night, "Family helps family. I hope you remember that when you need us." I stared at the screen, guilt rising like a wave, but I didn't reply. Tyler saw me reading the message and just hugged me, letting me lean into the silence. Despite everything, I was proud. I'd built something of my own, small as it was. My apartment, my job, my routines. I decorated the walls with postcards from places I dreamed of visiting: Vancouver, Lisbon, Tokyo. Tyler gave me a houseplant for my birthday, a little pathos I named Lucky, and it grew faster than anything else in the apartment. Savannah's life was more chaotic than ever. She changed jobs, moved apartments twice in 1 year, and always seemed to have a new crisis. Donna sent money, Rick signed loan papers, and occasionally I was roped in, asked to drive Savannah to a new apartment or bail her out after a fender bender. I said yes, more than I should have, but each time I drew the line a little sharper. This once became maybe next time, then finally I'm sorry I can't. Every no was a battle with myself. The guilt was sharp, but the relief that followed was real. Tyler noticed the change in me too. "You don't owe them your peace," he said one night when I was debating whether to lend Savannah money for a new phone. "You've done more than enough." I listened even when it was hard. The years blurred together: shifts at the hospital, slow Saturday mornings with Tyler, the quiet pride of paying my own bills. My independence grew, and so did my sense of self. I learned to celebrate small things: a compliment from a patient, a new recipe that worked a weekend without a single call from Donna. Still, I clung to hope that things might get better. Maybe the next family dinner, the next holiday would be different. Maybe Savannah would grow up, Donna would see how hard I'd worked, Rick would finally say he was proud. I didn't know that the next family celebration would shatter any illusions I had left. 2020. Minneapolis was finally beginning to feel like home. My apartment, once bare and makeshift, had gained a little warmth: a new thrifted armchair, art from a local street fair, the pathos Tyler gave me trailing from a kitchen shelf. On the fridge, thank you notes from hospital patients mingled with old holiday photos. It was a quiet comfort, a space that felt more like me with every year. Tyler had become a fixture in my life. He had his own keys, kept a pair of sneakers by the door, knew which coffee mug I liked best. Most nights he came over after work and we'd make dinner, comparing notes about impossible patients or long days. Sometimes he'd watch me read texts from my mother, shaking his head at how tense my shoulders got with every notification. It was the start of the holiday season. Thanksgiving this time, the kind where Donna insisted on perfect table settings, cloth napkins folded just so, and Savannah's favorite pie from a bakery in Edina. Tyler and I drove over in the late afternoon, both of us balancing dishes on our laps, the car radio playing classic rock. Family dinners hadn't changed much. Savannah was there, her hair styled in effortless waves, talking about a recent influencer gig that had brought in free clothes and a little pocket money. Donna beamed at every story. Rick passed the mashed potatoes without comment. I sat at the far end of the table, carving turkey, quietly answering questions about the hospital. My promotion, charge nurse on the floor, earned a single "That's nice, honey" from Rick before he turned back to football. Halfway through the meal, Donna steered the conversation toward Savannah's rent. "It's tough out there for young people," she said, glancing at me over her wine glass. "Savannah's been short this month. The brand deal hasn't come through yet. Madeline, would you mind helping her out?" Just this once. Savannah didn't look up, already scrolling on her phone. I could feel Tyler's eyes on me, searching for my reaction. He squeezed my knee under the table, a small gesture of support. I swallowed, feeling old anger rise up. How many times had I heard just this once? How many times had my bank account quietly emptied for the sake of keeping the peace? "I'm sorry, I can't," I said, my voice steady but soft. The room went quiet. Donna's expression flickered: surprise, then disappointment, then something colder. "Family helps family, Madeline. I thought you understood that." I looked at Rick, but he just shifted in his seat and reached for another roll. After dinner, I packed up leftovers in silence. Donna hovered nearby, her words clipped. Savannah left early to meet friends. Tyler helped me load the car, and as we drove away, he finally spoke. "They treat you like an ATM, Maddie. That's not love, that's dependence." We ate pie at my apartment later, just the two of us. Tyler wrapped his arms around me and said he was proud. For the first time, I believed him. The guilt was still there, a heavy stone in my chest, but I also felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd pulled a splinter I'd carried for years. The next week, Donna sent a short text, "I hope you feel good about your choices." I left it unread. Savannah texted for gas money. I didn't reply. It was a quiet holiday season. No emergencies, no frantic calls. Tyler and I put up a small tree, hung 2 stockings, and watched the snow fall from my apartment window. Every refusal made me less of a daughter in my mother's eyes, but more of myself. As I sipped hot chocolate and watched Tyler fall asleep on the couch, I realized that drawing a line wasn't just about keeping others out. It was about making space for the life I wanted, a life where love wasn't measured by how much I gave up, but by how much I could finally keep for myself. 2022. Minneapolis felt different, quieter, more settled. My apartment had grown into something warm and alive. The thrifted couch was replaced with a soft gray sectional Tyler found on discount. New plants lined the windowsill, sunlight pooling on their leaves. There was a small bookshelf by the door, now filled with cookbooks and mystery novels, and a shoe rack just for Tyler's sneakers. I'd been working as a nurse for 6 years, and it was finally starting to pay off. Early that spring, I got a letter from the hospital, an internal recognition award, a little extra in my paycheck, and a note from my manager about my leadership on the floor. It wasn't a public affair, no applause, no cake, but it meant something. I taped the card to my fridge right next to a photo of Tyler and me at the lake last summer. The routines I'd built were comforting. Tyler and I shared quiet evenings on the rooftop, watching the city lights flicker across the Mississippi. On weekends, we'd cook together or host small dinners for friends from the hospital. I'd started keeping a journal, writing down 3 good things from every day, a habit my therapist suggested to help me let go of old wounds. Donna called less often, but when she did, it was usually about Savannah. "She's had a rough month," Donna would sigh. "Lost another job. Rent's due soon. Do you think you could help? Just this once." The script never changed, even as I did. I'd listen, let the silence fill the air, and gently say, "I can't, Mom." Sometimes she hung up without saying goodbye. Savannah's life was a series of starts and stops. She cycled through jobs, apartments, boyfriends. She posted photos from brunches and concerts, always smiling, always winning, at least online. In real life, the emergencies never stopped. There were more calls from Donna, more messages from Savannah, this time for car trouble, next time for a new phone, then help with an overdue utility bill. Each time I said no. It never got easy, but the guilt grew quieter, replaced by something steadier. Tyler and my nurse friends became my chosen family, people who saw the real me, who showed up when I needed them. Not because they expected something in return, but because that's what true connection, island. One day I came home to find a handwritten thank you card from a patient sitting in my mailbox. She'd been a tough case, in and out of the hospital for months. Her words were simple: "Thank you for caring when no one else did." I set it on my nightstand, letting the weight of it settle over me. I thought back to my college graduation, how I'd sent photos to Donna and Rick hoping for a proud reply. They never responded. But Savannah posted a story of herself at a music festival, and Donna commented hearts and "So proud of you, baby." It used to sting, but now I just shrugged. On a quiet Sunday, I scrolled through old texts, deleting years of pleas and promises. I blocked Savannah's number, muted Donna's calls, and cleaned out the family group chat. For the first time, my phone was silent. Tyler noticed the change. "You look lighter," he said, handing me a mug of coffee on the balcony. I smiled, the city stretching out in front of us, feeling something that was almost peace. The old guilt lingered, but it didn't rule me anymore. I was finally building a life on my own terms, a life where I chose what to keep and what to let go. April 2024. Uptown Minneapolis was vibrant that evening, the sidewalks alive with spring air and the promise of a birthday celebration Savannah had been planning for months. The Italian restaurant she chose was the kind with a months-long waitlist, chandeliers sparkling above crisp white tablecloths, waiters in black vests, the quiet hum of money in every detail. Savannah's birthday always brought out the best in Donna. She wore her favorite pearls, her hair freshly styled, beaming as she greeted every guest. Savannah was radiant in a sequin dress, making sure to pose for photos with the cake before dinner even began. Tyler squeezed my hand as we walked in, giving me a gentle nod of support. Our party filled a private room, 12 people, all family and close friends. Donna ordered wine for the table, and Savannah fielded compliments about her growing influencer career. I sat quietly watching the night unfold, counting how many times my name went unmentioned. The meal was a blur of plates: antipasti, risotto, roast chicken, more wine. Savannah held court at the center, Donna and Rick flanking her, laughing at every story. Tyler made conversation with my uncle, but even he seemed uncomfortable. I noticed my aunt glancing at me now and then, her eyes sympathetic but wary. Dessert arrived, a 3-tiered cake with Savannah's name spelled in gold script. Cameras flashed, the room grew louder. Donna stood to give a toast, her glass raised high. To Savannah, the daughter I'm truly proud of. Your light brings joy to everyone here. Her words echoed, lingering longer than they should have. My face flushed, but I kept my expression blank. Tyler reached for my hand beneath the table, his grip reassuring. I waited for anyone to acknowledge me, but the moment passed, swallowed by laughter and the clinking of glasses. Then the waiter arrived, discreetly sliding a small leather folder onto the table in front of me. He said my name softly. Donna turned to me, her voice smooth but commanding. Go on, Madeline. Pay it. For a second I thought she was joking, but the room went silent, all eyes on me. Savannah was too busy checking her phone to notice Rick's gaze dropped to his plate. I opened the folder. The total $2,400 stood out in neat looping script. My breath caught. I'd seen big bills before, but this was different. This was about my place, my role, the one expected to handle things quietly without complaint. For a moment, I considered saying no. I looked at Tyler, who mouthed, "You don't have to." I looked at my aunt, who shook her head almost imperceptibly. But old habits die hard. I reached for my card, sliding it into the folder, my hand steady even as my heart pounded. Donna smiled, victorious, as if she'd won something. Savannah barely looked up. Rick said nothing. Tyler leaned in, his voice low. You deserve better than this. I nodded, unsure whether to cry or laugh. The rest of the dinner passed in a daze. Savannah led a round of shots, gifts were exchanged, people danced around the truth. No one mentioned the bill again. I gathered my things quietly, folding the receipt and tucking it into my purse. My humiliation felt private even as it happened in public. As we left, Tyler offered his arm. The city was alive outside, neon lights reflecting off puddles, music drifting from open windows. I felt lighter, not because I was free, but because something inside me had snapped loose. I'd stopped expecting anything from them and started expecting everything from myself. That night, I sat by my window and stared at the city. The pattern was clear now, impossible to ignore. I wasn't angry, not really. I was simply done. Summer 2024. The air in Minneapolis was finally warm, windows open to let in the sound of birds and distant traffic. My apartment looked much the same as before, small, sunlit, the same gray couch, the pathos stretching almost to the ceiling, but it felt different. It felt like home in a way I'd never managed before. Tyler was stretched out on the couch, reading, his laughter mixing with the music playing low from the kitchen. I moved around the apartment, watering plants, tidying up, taking in the quiet. On the bookshelf sat a row of thank you cards from patients, each one a reminder of work that mattered. There was a photo of Tyler and me at Lake Nokomis, and next to it a drawing a coworker's daughter had made for me after I helped her through a rough patch. The silence was precious. For the first time, my phone didn't light up with requests from Donna or Savannah. I had blocked Savannah's number weeks before after a particularly blunt ask for money. I'd muted the family group chat, leaving the texts unread, deleting them when they piled up. I'd even set Donna's calls to do not disturb, telling myself I'd answer only if it felt right, which so far it never had. There was a strange peace in letting go. Old habits took time to die, and sometimes the guilt still pricked at me, a pang when I passed a family photo on my way out the door, a stab when I scrolled past Savannah's latest filtered selfie. But mostly what remained was relief. Tyler noticed the shift before I did. You don't flinch anymore when your phone buzzes, he said one afternoon, handing me coffee. You look happier. Lighter. I felt it too, in my breathing and how I moved through the day, and how I finally slept through the night without waking up anxious about what someone else needed. At work, I'd settled into a rhythm that felt like purpose. My team respected me. Patients remembered my name, sometimes months after they'd gone home. I saved every little thank you, let them pile up in a box beneath my bed. They were my quiet proof that I mattered whether or not my family ever said the words. Savannah's life spun on distant and unchanging. She posted photos from rooftop parties and new brunch spots, still collecting likes and hearts from Donna, still living in a world where every day was her birthday. Occasionally I'd get a short, impersonal message. Do you have mom's insurance info, or can you cover my phone bill, I'll pay you back. I never replied. Donna reached out once just after the birthday dinner. Her message was short, businesslike, hope you're well, call me if you want. I stared at it for a long time before archiving it. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I focused on the life I'd built. Tyler and I planned weekend hikes, tried new recipes, invited nurse friends over for backyard barbecues. I started a new journal, not just for the good things, but for the boundaries I'd kept, the moments I'd chosen myself. I wasn't angry, just free. One night, Tyler and I hosted a small dinner for friends. Laughter filled the apartment, someone brought homemade pie, and I realized I hadn't thought about my family all evening. When everyone left, Tyler put on a record and we danced in the living room, sunlight streaming in through the windows. As I cleaned up, placing another thank you note on the shelf, I smiled. My family had never truly seen me. But now I saw myself, and for the first time, that was more than enough. There's a kind of freedom that comes with letting go, not the dramatic door-slamming kind, but the quiet release you feel when you finally stop carrying what was never yours. Looking back, I see every line I drew as an act of self-respect, each no as a step toward the person I am today. It wasn't easy to break the old patterns. The guilt, the longing for approval, the hope that things might one day be different, all of that took years to unravel. I've learned that sometimes family is about more than blood. Sometimes it's the friends who show up on hard days, the partners who know what you need without asking, the people who choose you simply because you're you. I may never get the apology I once wanted or the recognition I used to crave. But what I have now is better peace, pride, and the understanding that my worth doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. If you've ever found yourself in my shoes, torn between duty and your own happiness, I hope you remember that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. You don't owe anyone your peace, and you don't have to pay for love with your happiness. Where would you draw your line? I'd love to hear your stories or thoughts in the comments. Thank you for being here. If my journey resonated with you, feel free to share your own or subscribe for more stories like this one.